going to do about having blacks in the decision-making capacity, and also the truth is the light.
Sorry, I missed the last part of it.
The truth is the light. Commenting on what she had to say.
I might have missed something then too. The question is putting blacks into decision-making policies. Let's start from the beginning. When I came in with the Fort Wayne Police Department, there were something like 12 officers that were black. We're now up to 46. There were none that held ranking officers. There are 3 deputy chiefs of police. It's a similar situation in the fire department. I think there were 9 in the fire department at that time. There are 32. Again, first time deputy chiefs. When I came in, there was 1 member, 1 black member on the school board. There are now 3. It's the best. There's a black head of our public housing authority. I feel very strongly about promoting blacks. I'll tell you one of the things I think I can achieve in the next administration. I think one of my cabinet members, one of my division heads, at least one, can be black in the next 4 years. That's how strong I am. I will draw this contrast with Paul's plan. Bring us all together in consolidated government. Look at the county if you want to compare what's likely to happen. How many people are there in decision making there? I can't name a 1. How many people in rank officers? Not a 1. It is a very clear difference. We've made better progress under this Democratic administration than under any Republican administration ever.
Another question? No, sir. Sir, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Helmke?
1 division head black in the next 4 years. As I recall, he signed a statement 8 years ago that he was going to do better than that 8 years ago. The statement he signed 8 years ago didn't just say 1 division head. It said a number. A number of them. Where are they? I mean, how many years do we have to keep listening to the same promises? I've seen the statement. He signed it. He had people drew it up. He signed it. This was his pledge to the black community. He was going to have and they listed the jobs. They listed about 8 or 9 job areas. Now, I think 1 maybe of those has a minority in it now. And it said that there was going to be more done. That was 8 years ago. Oh, we had a couple people for a couple months, and then they didn't like the way they were being treated or couldn't move up, and they left. What has he really done? Yeah, we're in better shape than we were 8 years ago. You're not running against Bob Armstrong anymore. You're not running against Orvis Spears. You're running against Paul Helmke, and I've told you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a better record than you've had in the last 8 years, and that's going to be regardless of the size of our voting district. I'm going to make sure that we have more minorities, more blacks, and that I don't care whether it's countywide or if it's just bringing in the taxpayers we need from St. Joe Township and Boyd Township. I'll have more numbers and I'll have a better percent than you do. Look at the police department. The black police officers endorsed me today. Now, why'd they do that? Well, you got to talk to them. But why did they do that? Well, we get a few good high positions there. We get a few high positions there, but those are people that aren't going to be staying on for a long time. I see you, Hank. And where are the people moving up? Where are the people moving up in the ranks to replace Hank when he's not around anymore? They're not moving up in that department. The firefighters endorsed me. The city unions endorsed me. What kind of job, what kind of business are we running if the employees, black, the majority, everyone is endorsing the opponent? You know, in this day and age, we want to operate government like a business. We want to make sure that it's effective, that the people's morale's high, that they're doing a job. It's not been done. You can take the promises again. He made them 8 years ago. We can just, if you want to, I'll bring that down here. We'll Xerox off the statement and change the date on it for you. But he hasn't done it. It's time for a change.
Thank you, Mr. Helmke. Mr. Moses, give a minute. Give a minute.
Why don't we move on? I think
Okay, fine. Okay.
My name is Charlie Williams, and this question is addressed to both candidates. What plans for employment for adult blacks ages 22 to 35 in the inner city do you have?
Mr. Moses can begin.
Yes, several approaches to that. First is to continue to have the economy expand for everybody. You can't target just one area and expect that area only to grow, whether they're adult black males, white males, females of any age. We have to say we're going to expand all across the board for everybody. That's what I believe in. That's what I think will bring us progress. That is what has reduced the black unemployment from nearly 30% down to 14% in part. What are we going to do? We're going to expand the businesses that are here, as we have. We're going to bring in some new ones. We're talking to them right now. We need to target those individuals that have particular difficulties. In that 14%, for instance, that is unemployed, literacy is a difficult problem. We're going to set up over in McCormick Place with the Northeast Literacy Council a program to help train them so that they can get into that ladder and get moving ahead. One of the biggest problems that I see is not just getting in the ladder, but being able to move ahead. In 1982, there were no jobs. People couldn't move ahead. They couldn't even get on. Well, we've now turned that around, and as this economy expands and more positions open, those people that are in the ages 20 to 35 have better and better opportunities. I'll tell you, I want to help them get housing too. I think it's important that they find a way, with the many houses that we have in this community, with the city's help, with programs that expand the housing, so that they can have a place to call their own, so that they can raise their family. This is the child-rearing time. These are the people that are putting their kids in school and they need a good place. We'll do a number. We're sponsoring seminars on how to do business with the city for those that want to get into their own business. And there's an immense opportunity there. We are trying hard to get more and more involved in that. I would urge you and everybody of that age to look towards that as an entrepreneur. I think it's important the black community not just look for a job, we'll work hard to accomplish that, but that they become producers and entrepreneurs and have their own businesses so that when times get rough at International Harvester or the rest, they got their own way to earn a living. That's why we have these minority enterprise loans, the companies that I listed to you. We have all kinds of programs like that so that people can hear. We have our Minority Business Week coming up very soon. Please come down and we'll go through a whole menu of activities that will help immensely. Now, nothing's perfect. I mean, I'm sure Paul will say, I can do better. I'll hire more. I'll do more. Gosh, I'll spend more money. Let me tell you, we've made the best progress any place, and we're moving ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Helmke.
First of all, we have to realize there's a problem. You know, there is a serious problem, especially in that age group, especially among blacks. Like I said before, I think it's a slap in the face of those people to say Fort Wayne's working when they're not. Number one, recognize there's a problem. Let's look at what they're doing. These programs sound great. One of the ones he mentioned is this Minority Business Enterprise Program. Did any of you read that article in Frost back in May that talked about how well that worked? How the head of his board of works didn't even know that it was supposed to be meeting? How maybe it met once or twice over the last 2-3 years? How they weren't doing anything? Yeah, it sounded great on paper. Sounded real good on paper, but it wasn't doing anything. Now, part of it's they got turnover up there. I mean, it's like our economic development department. Most of the people that are there now weren't there 2 years ago. Talk about rookies. They don't even know what programs they made promises on. Step number one, recognize there's a problem. Step number two, let's remove the legal barriers. Now, we haven't talked about that at all. There are legal barriers to these people getting in. There's discrimination. We've got to do something about that, and that means that we need a Human Relations Commission that works, and works efficiently and effectively, quickly, to get people results. That doesn't mean forcing everything to court right away. That means let's get down and let's solve those problems. Number two, let's remove the economic barriers. Think about it. White businessman sitting out there. He can hire a white guy or he can hire the black guy. Who's he going to hire? Well, most of the time he's going to hire that white guy, huh? Okay, we've got to tell him. We've got to give him some incentive to do that differently. Okay, that's what we use these enterprise zones for. That's what we use these tax abatements for. That's what we use all these little EDC bonds for. We go in there saying, Mr. Businessman, when you hire, you're not going to get this unless you're meeting this sort of hiring standard that we want to set. Then all of a sudden the businessman, it's not a question of he prefers the white guy over the black guy. It's a question of if he doesn't get the black guy, he's not going to be getting those tax breaks. All of a sudden you put a dollar sign on it. Let's put those dollar signs on. Let's make sure we're using our economic clout to solve some of our problems. Let's keep giving away the freebies to the businessmen, forgetting about the people. Step number three, after you've removed the legal barriers, after you've removed the economic barriers, let's get in there and let's remove those educational barriers. Let's work with the school systems before those people drop out, before they become cultural illiterates, before they become people that we can't train. We've got to work soon with the schools, and we haven't done that. That's the four-step program. Remember, there's a problem. Remove the legal barriers, remove the economic barriers, remove the educational barriers. We've got to do more.
Thank you, Mr. Helmke.
This question will be addressed to both candidates. My name is Terry Bird, and I'm a local product here. I was born and raised in Fort Wayne, and I'm a member of the Fort Wayne Fire Department. And at present, I just have a question from the standpoint of when I came on the job, I've been on the job 4 years. And when I came on the job, two individuals who had came on the job. The first was the first black and the second black on the Fort Wayne Fire Department, and that individual was Richard Ridley. He came on in 1961. And in 1963, Chief Edie came on the fire department. For the next, and I'm saying I went to school here. I went to Hannah. Some of you are familiar with Hannah, Smart, Weiser Park, and Graduate Central. And for the next 11 years, this individual came on the fire, Chief Marvin Edie came on the fire department December 9, 1963. Okay, you're talking 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. Okay, now we go all the way to 1974 before the third black came on the fire department. That's 11 years. But during that time, I'm old enough to remember who the mayor of the city of Fort Wayne was during that time. That individual's name is Zeiss. And I don't know his party label. Some of you individuals here will probably know that individual. But then Leverboff came in office. Some blacks were hired. In the entire Fort Wayne Fire Department, which numbers 36 members, only 2 individuals came on the Fort Wayne Fire Department under a Republican administration. And that's my question. And also another question is UNIGOV. I'm old enough to have lived in Indianapolis.
Okay, really have time.
Okay, well, I'm leaving.
One question.
Okay, UNIGOV is something interesting, and if you know anyone in Indianapolis, talk to them about it, because it's extremely interesting. Thank you.
Mr. Helmke.
Racism exists in our society, it exists in our city, and it's existed here for a long time. It's wrong, it needs to be rooted out, and it needs to be done consistently. It has to be something that's inside people. We have to fight against it. We've made mistakes in the past, and I can't apologize for those. It's wrong. I think that's an abysmal record. More should have been done. More needs to be done. I'm not the mayor from 1966. I mean, I was, I'm not that guy. I wouldn't be standing here if I were that guy, right? I don't know how often he's been down here. I'm committed, I'm telling you where I'm coming from. I'm from this community. I've been around. People have dealt with me. Talk to anyone who's dealt with me. I treat people fair. I treat people straightforward. I'm going to treat people as a person, not because of their race, not because of their color, not because of their sex, not because of where they came from. I treat them as a person. I'm going to believe them until they cross me, and I'm going to deal with them fair and square, and I'm going to do that regardless. Don't hold those past sins against me. I want to correct those things. Right now, what I'm concerned about is what's happened in this past administration. I look at the police department. We had a hiring freeze there for a while. We had a deal back a few years ago where you were supposed to hire one black officer for every 2 that got, or promote one black officer for every 2 that got promoted. Well, all of a sudden that vanished. We've had 21 promotions and none of them are black lately. What's going on here? We need to root out this prejudice. We need to root out this racism. It exists. It still exists. People that say it's not here are fooling themselves. I know we got to change it. I'm going to work to do that. UNIGOV is interesting. I'm not proposing UNIGOV for Fort Wayne. I'm not. I don't care what he says. I'm saying that we can no longer afford the waste and the duplication that we, the city residents, are paying for. We've got to find some way to change that, and I say let's start looking into that now, because if we don't, we are the ones that are going to suffer.
Thank you, Mr. Helmke. Mr. Moses.
In 1980, when I took office, there were 12 black police officers. There are now 46. In 1980, there were 8 black firefighters. There are now 32. To help make those numbers equal and fair, because we were so far back, and I inherited from my Republican predecessor a law from the Treasury Department saying, if you don't take immediate steps, we're going to cut off your revenue sharing. I don't think there was another city treated in the United States that way, and it was because of the way they were treating people, the way they were discriminating. When I came in, I said, it's going to be different. And we began to hire. One class of black officers was entirely black officers because it was so unfair and so tilted. The only way we could get any sort of equality so that the community is adequately and proportionally represented was to do exactly that. People said, Mayor, you can't put an entire class of black firefighters in. You got to have some others. I said, no, we don't. This is the fair way to do it. We're going to get these officers on so they can begin up that career ladder, so they can become sergeants and captains and lieutenants and deputy chiefs and assistant chiefs. And we're training them, and they're coming. And I think Mr. Burton, as he sees from 4 years on there, is an excellent example of what the future holds for this Fort Wayne Fire Department. Let me close with one last comment. Paul is not exactly a newcomer. He's been a substantial attorney to the Highway Department of the county. How many black members do you see in the county's Highway Department? This man has been drawing a payroll for a long time. Where has he spoken up? Do you see it? The results. He's saying, oh gosh, I'm going to do better now. If you'll just give me a chance, if you'll just elect me, you'll just put me in as mayor. He's got a record. It's a clear one. There's nothing there. Look at the county highway department and know that for 13 years, Paul was there.
Thank you, Mr. Moses. Gentlemen, this is going to be the last question, and the two candidates will have their closing arguments.
I got hired in 70 as Fort Wayne Police Department, but I didn't accept the job because I got hired because I was black. My question is for minority business contracts from the city. I want to know what you plan to do, because we can grab ourselves up, we hire our own people. I mean, give us a chance with some contracts from the city, and we can pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. Now, you talk about percentages, you know the percentages, because all you talk about percentages all day, Mr. Helmke. Let us know something, what you plan to do. We want some minority contracts with the city.
I think that's quite certainly something the city has to do. I mean, that we need to make sure that work that's being done by the city and contracted out by the city is going to minority contractors. And that doesn't mean just all going to one or two minority contractors. That means that we're encouraging other minorities to set up their own businesses. I don't want one of these shell games where you've got a shell minority contract and then it's all a bunch of white workers. We need to work closely with minority enterprise. That means we need a functioning program. We need to make sure that the people that are doing the work are actually going to be doing the work and are actually going to represent the minority community. I promise, I commit myself that we will meet the hiring goals that have been established in the past, and we're going to do better than that. And if I don't do that, then you get on my tail, because we've got to do better than we've done, and that's going to be hard, but I'm going to work with you on that. And I pledge to that.
Thank you, Mr. Helmke. Mr. Moses.
In 1983, I created the position of Minority Purchasing Coordinator to aid. We have passed a law, first one in the state of Indiana, that says we are going to have minority enterprises. We are going to work with them, we're going to buy from them, and we're going to hire and contract. I have an individual who does nothing but try to find more black companies that want to participate. I would urge you, sir, to come down and look at the opportunities, because we want to hire you. We want to find a way for you to produce a product. We will not only help hire you, we will in fact, and I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards, because I suspect this is getting a little tight. Go down and talk to Carol Overley. Okay. She is the purchasing director, the minority purchasing coordinator. The two of them work together because that's the way it should be, all of us working together. We have a minority business week. Well, why don't I go on and we'll just do it here.
Okay. Mr. Moses now has 3 minutes for concluding arguments.
The other way around. I started first and then last.
Okay. Let's do it.
You told me that he starts first, I could go last.
One thing is I've been so far they've been telling us what they can do, for us. Where it seems like the real issue is on what we can do for ourselves. And I would like for us to
They will have the opportunity to vote an argument to address that.
Thank you.
I'm at a spot here. And I invite, can I at this point flip a coin to this point?
It was my understanding, and I agreed to start first because I would end last.
I'll go ahead. I've said from the start, I'll come down. Any sort of format you want to set up, I'll follow any rules. I'll do it a forum. I sat my person down when we first started talking about this and said we wanted to get in here, we wanted to have a fair debate with a debate sure. It was his people to drag their feet and say, oh, we don't want a debate. We've had too many debates with Paul. They wanted a forum. They wanted to say, let's meet and shake hands. So when Mel told me that I would get to go last, usually the best positions are going first at the start, going last at the end. I'll concede. I'll go first. I think it's... To a large degree, this has been the forgotten community.
That's true.
It's been the forgotten community, the forgotten people.
That's true.
This community is not working. 14% is abysmal. 14% unemployment. Fort Wayne is working, slap in the face. I've presented programs. We need to make that enterprise zone work. We need to make Metro work. We need to make sure that there's strings attached when we hand out those tax breaks. We need to develop entrepreneurship programs. That has to be one of the emphasis. That's why I talked about let's turn the control over these programs to the local community as much as we can. Instead of doling out $500 here or $1,000 there while we're pouring 3.8 into a courtyards or 1.1 for a micro-standard group, let's get the money into the community and have the community decide how they can best handle that money, how they can best hire people. Let's stop treating this as the forgotten community. Fort Wayne is not working right here. It's forgotten the community when we come to crime. We haven't talked a whole lot about that. Do you realize one of the biggest problems we've got, one of the biggest taxes on our business people, particularly the business people in this area, is crime. Now think about it. Who suffers from crime? It's the people that live in that neighborhood. It's the people that work in that neighborhood. What are we doing as a city to fight crime, particularly in the inner city? Marketplace at Canterbury Precinct? That doesn't cut the mustard. Visibility programs, that doesn't do it. We've got to get people here working. We've got to get police officers here. One of the biggest problems that we've got is drugs. That's right, and it's hurting all of us because drugs leads to the burglaries and the robberies. You know how many officers we've got working narcotics? 7. You know how many of those are black? 0. That's right. You know how much money they've got in the drug buy account as of last weekend? $700. Actually, $699. Can't buy a whole lot of drugs for $699. We've got to get in there and fight these problems. You don't do it just through drug awareness programs. You do it by hiring more officers, by putting them where the crimes are occurring instead of out there in the Gucci precinct or whatever the police officers call it. And you've got to give them that backup and say that drugs is our priority. We're going to fight that. We've got the same problem. We've got the same problem when it comes to vice. Do you realize that our vice officers don't work after midnight? I don't know about you, but as far as I'm concerned, I always heard that a lot of vice goes on after midnight. That's not the way to solve crime. This has been the forgotten community. In terms of growth, and really that's kind of the bottom line on this whole issue of how government delivers services. 52% or so of the people in the county live in the city. But 91% of the minorities live inside the city limits. 75% of the people over the age of 65 live in the city limits. 90% of those below the poverty level live in the city limits. What's happening? The people with the money are moving out. The people that are staying in are the ones that need the services. The people that are moving outside those limits and aren't paying for things, use our downtown, use our streets, benefit from our flood control, benefit from our jobs creation, and don't pay for it. And that's wrong, and we've got to change it. I'm Paul Helmke. I haven't had a record. I don't run the county. I didn't run city government back in the 60s. We need to approach our future with an open mind, with a commitment. And I'm committing to you, I'm promising you that I'll do everything I can to treat you fair, to treat every citizen fair, and to do the best to make this the best city possible for all of our citizens. We can be a lot better than we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Helmke. Mr. Moses.
Thank you, Mr. Rutledge. Thank you, Truelove Baptist Church, for having this. In conclusion, let me make a few points. Paul may think this place is forgotten. That's because he hasn't been here before this campaign year. I've been here. I've walked Hannah Street, and Oxford, and Creighton, and Winter, and Hugh, and Lily, and all of them. And you can see where we've been because there are curbs, and there are sidewalks, and there are street lights, and there are houses painted up, and there's insulation all around. And we're trying to get those kids jobs. There's no forgetting. Every day I think about how to make this community better and the black community better in every way. This is not forgotten in any fashion. It may be not understood. It may be unknown to him. It may be not something that he thinks about much, but it's not to the rest of us in this room at all. I listened to him talk, and he said, one of the things we have to do is change Metro. Well, this is one of the few specifics that really makes my blood boil. I think Dee McKinley does a super job at Metro. She works very, very hard. Have you seen her at all the community meetings? She's the national vice president of the Metropolitan Community Commissions all over this United States. She has my full support. He may want to get rid of her, but she has my full support to stay right where she is. Paul says we can do better. Well, let me say this. Fort Wayne growth just didn't happen. You see people beating down the doors to come in and give jobs and to fix up neighborhoods? That doesn't happen all over the state. If you have any doubt, take a trip. Go visit South Bend or Terre Haute or Evansville or any other city practically. They're not moving like you and I are moving in this state at all. We're making it happen, moving ahead and getting things done. You can't just cut off the head and expect it to continue running. It won't do it. Nothing does it like that. At all. Ever. I called Indianapolis. I said to Julia Carson, and she's been here. She's been at this church. And Glenn Howard, who's a black councilman there, he wanted me to bring you a message. He says this: all blacks in Fort Wayne should do everything possible to defeat the Republican proposal for Unigov in Fort Wayne. It will dilute your voting strength, and I quote, it is a disaster for minorities. That's what they say in Indianapolis. Julia Carson said, the first thing to know about Unigov is it dilutes black voting power. Blacks lose any inroads into the power base, and because of the new areas added, municipal employees ignore the needs and sentiment of the black community. That's the difference between him and me. I want to keep going what we've got. He wants to do it that way. Let me pose one last question as you leave tonight as to who might be your best mayor. Somebody you know who's worked hard for you and with you and made progress, or Paul, a country club lawyer and his prosecutor. There it is.
Excuse me, before you leave, I want to thank personally both candidates for coming this evening. This is put together by Reverend White. I want to thank you for your contribution.